Ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely excited to announce the return of the Road to Grandmaster series. In this series, I take you through the behind-the-scenes training, as well as the recaps of tournaments that I played to achieve the Grandmaster title. This is the first episode in 2025, and the 58th episode overall, and I'll be announcing a few things in this video. Number one, starting tomorrow, January 16th, 2025, I'm playing a round-robin tournament here in New York City. So there will be 9 recaps to be made of that event. In this video, I'm going to preview that tournament first. Then I'm going to announce 2 very cool things that you are going to be able to do. Not just watch the recaps. You'll be able to follow my game and play Guess the Move and earn points. And also, I'm going to be making a mini course based on my tournament on Chessly, and you can do it and get double XP points. It's going to be quizzes, exercises, so you can follow my games live, and also you can learn from my games. And you can do all of this on a free trial. You don't have to be a paying member. So if you haven't tried it yet, please do. Okay, let's go. And then I'm going to show you a few games that I've played, including one yesterday against Parham Maksudlu. So 3 parts of this video. Here we go. All right. First things first, the tournament. I am playing the 2025 Blitz Fuel Invitational. It's a tournament. Now, I will be playing in an IM section, so I cannot get a Grandmaster norm, but I will be playing at least one Grandmaster. I'm also the 4th seed, and there's a lot of strong players here. Ryan Sun is the #1 ranked 13-year-old in the country, so if you're watching this and you're 13, step up. There are some other teenagers here, like these 2 players. So it's a strong field, very strong field. Last time I played an IM norm round robin, I did pretty well. I don't expect to get 8 out of 9 again, but I'm doing this to shake off the cobwebs. It's been a few months, and obviously here are all the pairings. I will be starting off against Pedro Espinosa, who is a player that I have known for more than half his life. I think I've known him since he was like 10 years old. So it's going to be a very fun matchup. By the way, if you don't know, Blitz Fuel is an energy drink actually created by a GothamChess longtime community member. So he's sponsoring the event, and he's a friend of the channel. So if you want to, I'll drop a link in the description for you to check that out. Now let's talk about how you can follow this event. First of all, on Chessly, we have built, this is a super prototype, but you will basically have a page here where you can follow my game live, and you can guess moves, and you will earn points. It's not 100% done, but it will be at the time of the tournament, which starts tomorrow, and you can find all the information on, the chess.com page. But that's number 1, and you can do this on a free account if you haven't. I'll put a link of that in the description. And courses, there will be a course on the All Courses page of Chessly here at the very, very top, and it's going to be called Special Events right here. It's going to be above this. It's going to be called Special Event, and you will be able to just click into it, and you'll be able to gain double XP. By the way, if you don't know, here's a Chessly course. So that's very fun. And I'll be, like I said, I will drop a link. If you already have an account, set a little notification reminder. You can play Guess the Move of my game. You can also do this course, and this course will offer you double XP, and it will expire after the tournament is done. Okay? So a couple of very fun and quick announcements. Here is the upcoming tournament. It starts tomorrow. I'm super excited. And now it's time to show you some chess games. Again, free trial on Chessly is 7 days. No card is required. There's a button at the bottom. And now it's time to analyze some games. So yesterday I played some Title Tuesday. In the evening, I was in particularly good form. And I actually played against the one and only Parham Maksudlu, one of the best players in the world. I also won some games against Grandmasters. I won against a strong Turkish player. Young player, and I'll be showing you these 3 games to just kind of give you an update of my, my form and what I expect from the tournament. This was one of the most gangster games I ever played. The only preview is that this king ended up there. So how did that happen? All right. Remember, I played all these games on anonymous mode, so I didn't actually know who I was playing. So I started the game with C4. It's not really a secret. I am a C4 and D4 and Knight F3 player, and I've been playing a lot of C4 online. I played E4 for like a year online, but I've been mixing it up. My opponent went G6. This is not a move that gives a whole lot of information. I don't know if black is going to go back to a symmetrical, so I just played G3. I copied. We both developed our bishops. And then my opponent went here, and now I have a choice, basically. The choice is mine to play d4 or not. So if I play knight c3 and d3, that is the English way of playing this position. Knight f3, castle would would be the other way, and d4 is kind of taking it to a traditional game. I went d4, and from the opening we have this position. This is known as the fianchetto or fianchetto King's Indian defense. Black has played the traditional 5 moves, I should say. And now black will decide, like, knight c6 and e5, knight d7 and c5. There was the game from the World Rapid and Blitz, Naroditsky. He played a6, knight d7 and c5. And I'm obviously going to put pressure on this diagonal. Here my opponent played knight c6, which is one of the most common moves. And now white can either instigate with d5 or not. And that's what I did. And so now the knight can undevelop, and basically black's whole point is, well, you're overextended, I'm going to try to, go here. Knight b8 is not a horrible move, but the main line is knight a5. And basically, the argument is like, hey, I'm going to attack this pawn, you have to defend it somehow. Now, here, for a little while, I was playing the move knight to d2, as well as queen d3. Both of these moves defend the pawn. Knight d2 is a little bit more solid, but the main move in this position is the move b3. And the point of b3 is that you simply protect this pawn, and this knight is vulnerable, but black cannot exploit that. That's not possible. Black should play c5 and try to attack on the queen side. My opponent makes a mistake, knight e4, and now is losing. Now, knight e4 on the surface does look like knight e4, bishop a1 is simply the winning of material. Obviously, my opponent was not familiar with this variation, so they thought that I had made a mistake. But the point of this is that now it's not that I'm going to move my bishop over here, it's that I'm going to move my bishop over here. And the knight is not protected. It would have been protected if the pawn was on c5, and now this is unprotected as well. Now, if I were to ask you a question, which of these two pieces should black save? Everybody here should answer the bishop. Because without the bishop, the position here is ruined. I mean, the king is absolutely vulnerable. But my opponent played a crazy move. My opponent played f5, which to some degree makes sense because you want to counterattack. But now you are weakening your king even more. There are now more open squares in front of your king. I could have taken the bishop and then maybe tried to take the knight after running away, but I decided just move the knight, and now black has the exact same problem. Black here went h6, and now this is very bad. Because I grabbed the bishop, and now you have all this open space. Black went here, and actually now the computer doesn't even want to take the knight. It wants to take the pawn. It thinks that actually I have a better attack on that side of the board. But I took the knight because it was a free knight, and, I want to set a good example for the children. I attacked the pawn, and now king h7. And so now the question is, how does white continue the attack? This is a nice little appetizer game, and like I told you in the preview, the king ends up on g3, okay? So how does that happen? Well, first we got to go h3. Obviously here the traditional move is you just castle, but I went h3 because I have a rook and a king on the other side of the board. Now what my opponent thought here probably is that they just play g5 and my knight is trapped. And that is actually kind of accurate, but also it's not really accurate. It's not accurate because even though the knight is trapped, I now get my rook into the game, and this king is simply not going to survive this attack. It's just not going to happen. However, I also could have went knight takes f5. Which I actually did not see. And the point is that whatever takes, I now have a discovered attack like that. That would have been very nice. But my brain was locked in, and I sacrificed my knight. Rook h4, king g6. So at the moment, I'm not down any material, which, I mean, I have a really monster attack, and I'm not down any material because I have 8 pawns. Black only has 6. And I have a bishop and 2 pawns for a rook, but these pieces haven't even moved. It's been 17 moves, and black hasn't moved a single piece. So I, played pawn takes f5 check to continue to open up the king, and here I played g4. I was very hesitant that black would somehow create counterplay, but I figured now this bishop has to retreat. I play bishop e4, and look, here I really wanted to go queen c1 to try to put a queen on h6, but then I relinquished the defense of the h8 square, and there's rook h8. And if black gets a few moves, suddenly black is no longer losing. You have to understand, it's very easy to watch a recap and go, oh, plus, look at this. Look at this white bar is massive. You know what else is massive? Low taper fade, not what you think. So, yeah, I mean, the advantage is massive, but you actually have to capitalize on it properly. I went g4, bishop d7, bishop e4. And so here, I've got an M, right? I've got an M in the evaluation. It's mate. I was expecting the king to run backwards, but that just doesn't work because I have rook h7 and bishop g6. So the king ran forward, attacking my rook. But we all know me. And so here I calculated something really vicious. I looked at rook h5, but in general, my rook is always under attack. And if I just retreat my rook, well, black is still losing, but maybe black doesn't lose, and, maybe I mess up, and suddenly the king gets this. I don't know. So I was like, well, I think the king has to run down over here. So I calculated queen g7 check, king takes, right? Then I calculated queen h6 check, the only legal... You should always look at checks where the opponent only has really one legal move. Queen g7, king h4, queen h6, king g4, f3, check, king g3. Now I was like, well, I can play queen g5, and that forces the king to the h-file. But with the king on g3, I found a really beautiful resource. And I'm going to show it to you right now. I played queen g7 check, king h4. I played queen h6. I forced this. I played f3 check. The rook can take, but then the king has to go here anyway. And the fastest way to checkmate here is the absolutely gangster move, king f1. And this bishop is returning there. And the craziest part is there is bishop h3 check, king g1. And the king is stuck. Completely stuck in my position. The only way to delay mate here is to play rook takes f3. And I played bishop e1 check, which is not the fastest way. I had a faster mate. I could have just taken the rook. But I played bishop e1 check, rook f2, bishop f2, and queen h4 mate. This was a really fun game. I gotta tell you, of course my opponent blundered in the opening, but I really enjoy games like this where I can be, dynamic, sacrifice material. I sacrificed a rook and a knight. I walk the king all the way to g3, and the dagger is the quiet king move, opening up the bishop retreat to the first rank. I mean, I was super happy to win a game like this, but I also won a couple of nice games against really, really strong players. Of course, in that game, I was playing somebody I was a 300-point favorite against. How did I face against Parham Maksulu, who's one of the best players in the world? Well, I didn't know I was playing Parham. So it was a Sicilian defense. By the way, you see here I played an e4 game. He played Sicilian, and I played Alapin. I've been looking at a lot of Alapin really for both colors, because I made the Chesley course on the Alapin, in case you haven't seen it. And I also have been looking at Sicilian as black, because ever since that last tournament that I played against Pia Cramling as well, but... I've been looking at a lot of Alapin. I looked at Alapin when I played against her, Pia as well. So knight f6, and we enter this variation of the Alapin. This is actually on Chesley. This is the line. And then on Chesley, there is a very, very fun and aggressive line. And so here's something really weird happened. So Parham played d5. I took on Passant. And here, the only move that I have ever seen in my life is queen takes d6. But Parham played bishop f5. And I was like, what? And maybe the point of bishop f5 is to trick me into taking on e7? Because that is the only explanation I can possibly have. Because when I saw bishop f5, I was like, well, what about knight takes d4? That's the whole point. I mean, in the Alapin, white wants to keep the structure together. White has a queenside majority, 3 pawns versus 2. The bishop is a target, and after take, I'm just going to trade, and I'm just better. Like, from the opening, I have a better position. Why? Better pawn structure. Safer king. My king is going to get to safety before black's king is. So I have a 3 and a 3. Black has a 3, a 2, and a 1. The pawn on d6 is just a massive target. So when when we got here, I castled. I honestly, here the computer wants me to go bishop e3 and take the knight. It wants to, totally ruin black's pawn structure and actually castle queenside instead of castling king. I just thought, okay, I'm going to castle my king. I don't really see the big deal. Then I would play rook e1. And Parham here is trying to consolidate. He's actually sacrificing development. He has to move backwards to protect his king. I played a move that I thought was very natural, which was this. He played a5. I wasn't too worried about a5, a4, because I was never going to take his bishop, right? Or maybe I was. Then I went knight a3 with the simple intention of putting basically all of my pieces in the center of the board, which I thought looked extremely natural. And then I would play maybe knight b5 or whatever. Now here, it's honestly like the move I made here was kind of dumb in retrospect, but during the game, I thought it made a lot of sense. Like I traded and I improved Parham's pawn structure, but I just thought these pawns are just going to stand there with my rooks ready to go. And I thought retreating would mean that his bishop has a permanent pressure here, doesn't really let my knight enter the game. But again, it's blitz. Like I made the decision to trade bishops with Parham in 3 seconds. In a longer game, maybe I retreat and then maybe I like maneuver. But probably the simple solution there was not to trade his pieces. Now I kind of lose a little bit of my advantage, but I thought my position is so nice. It's so nice. I mean, my next move is knight b5. I'm going to double my rooks on either file. I don't see anything wrong with my position. He played d5. Immediately I jump in, right? I'm ready with knight c7, which is a fork. He goes rook c8, stopping. And now is the critical moment. I have a 1-minute time advantage against a 3,100 rated player. I don't know I'm playing him, but... And I start looking at different things. Like, for example, I looked at knight d4, which I rejected because he simply plays rook e8, and... I mean, I thought, like, okay, I can maybe try to make a draw, but that looks a little bit silly. I don't think he's going to make a draw. And the thing is, I know black's next move is bishop e7 or bishop c5 and bringing the rook. And I thought, well, if I give him time to consolidate, then he's going to start, unwinding, and he's going to get a really nice position. So I thought, okay, maybe rook e2, double the rooks, or rook e2, double the rooks, or b3 and c4. b3 is a nice idea because I trade his powerful pawn. I can play c4 targeting his center, and I disallow the knight from coming forward. So after spending 44 seconds, which I shouldn't have, I played b3, which was a reasonable move. But again, I was very nervous that he's going to have enough time here to bring his bishop and rook. He hasn't moved his bishop and rook yet. Now, what the computer wants me to play here is, in fact, rook e2. It wants me to keep a level of flexibility, but it does think that the necessary move here is rook e2. I went b3 because I thought I spotted a nice idea. I thought the idea that I spotted here is that if he brings his bishop out, I play b4, put his bishop back here, and then I go after his pawn, which is what I did. I went here, here, here. I thought I'm happy. But I totally misevaluated the position after rook takes c3. And now, after this, I'm slightly worse. I should have went here. I rejected this move because I thought, well, his knight just comes here, and I don't know how I'm going to defend my pawns. But I actually can defend my pawns. I mean, if I'm a computer, I'm not. Yeah, that's sort of... and at this point, I'm like, okay, knight e6 is better because at least I attack this. And also, if knight e6, the rook attacks the pawn and the knight can't move. And that's what I did. He goes here. And here I blundered. I found this move, which I thought made sense because he can't take my knight because his knight is hanging. But I totally missed that he retreats his rook. And this is a really nasty move because not only does it defend the knight, it attacks my knight and it attacks my rook. And now I'm completely lost. So in a span of a few moves from a position where it was pleasant, it was not bad. I had to kind of apply the pressure the right way. I didn't. And in general, moves like rook e2 in blitz especially are really difficult for me. Really difficult. I mean, in a classical game, sure, I spent 4 minutes and, I doubled the rooks, but b3 at least made sense. But here I should have realized, I cannot waste more time on this. And I blanked on the fact that when I put my knight on d4, the pawn on c3 ends up hanging. And actually, would have even been better to play bishop e5, for example. But the other benefit of putting the rook on e2 is that f2 is always protected. That's why rook e2 was such an important move. I didn't understand that, and, it's blitz, and the better player ultimately wins. And here, by the way, bishop d2 is a nice idea I can't take. Parham's a very creative player. Bishop d2 is very nice. And, I mean, I'm just down a rook for a bishop, and I resigned here. I could have continued the game, but I would have lost because he's really good, and also up a rook for a bishop. That was tough, because actually from the opening, I was very happy. I thought I had a very nice position. I thought I played the position well, but that's chess, and unfortunately, you can't always win. But you can win sometimes, and I was very proud of this game. Except that I missed mate in 1, basically. So you will see how that goes. So my opponent played e4. I played the French. This is a person... I really like this person's username. They've actually been in a few of my videos. Donkey. It's a great name. You know what I'm really fascinated by? Why this person doesn't have an E in these 2 donkeys, but an E in that one. No idea. Straight, like, it's a mystery to me forever. I don't know. I've played this person a few times. And this person also plays Hikaru a lot. So they played the advanced variation. This is like a 17 or 18-year-old near Grandmaster from Turkey. Will be Grandmaster probably soon. My opponent played here, and this is the advanced French. And now Bishop d3. Bishop d3 is the Milner-Barry gambit. And the point is that white oftentimes just gives up the pawn in the center of the board for rapid development. So c takes d4. One line that I actually play here with white is castles. But okay, c takes d4. I cannot take the pawn on d4 in the Milner-Barry because there is bishop b5 check, winning the queen, which is why I play bishop d7, which stops that. And so the threat is to take the pawn, which white doesn't care about. It's a gambit. Knight d4 and knight d2. It's a very poisonous gambit, actually. If anybody's looking for a line in the French, the Milner-Barry is very tough for black to deal with. In general, one of the best lines against the French is simply the advance, because people are quite bad with a lack of space. And this is like an advanced Caro-Kann, except in the advanced Caro-Kann, you can actually develop your bishop. But here you can't do that. So knight d2, and so here I played knight c6. I remembered from ancient times, like, and by ancient times, I mean like probably 10 years ago, I used to play this with white and with black, and I simply liked undeveloping my knight. Just saying, you can't take me, you can continue your development, I will continue my development. I play queen c7. Look at white's position. For the cost of a pawn, open bishops, open knights, dominance in the center, you know, like very, very powerful position. And I can play knight e5 here and just be up 2 pawns, but I was really worried, like, this is a bit dangerous. Basically, black can call the bluff and win a second pawn, but I was like, come on, I'm just gonna go here and castle. I'm gonna be very chill. I'm okay with a kind of passive position, but my opponent just goes straight at me. H4, attacking me. You'll notice I'm not giving up this bishop, but I'm very happy to give up this bishop. Why? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my pawns are on light squares, means my light squares are good, means my light squared bishop is bad. It is a light squared bishop in the French. It is known to be pretty bad. So h4, and now I anticipated that h5 was coming, so I wanted to put my knight on f8. Question was, where do I move my rook? Well, where is the battle going to be, and where is the board going to open up? Rook c8. Sometimes ideas flow very nicely, right? Rook c8, it's going to be on the c file. I put my knight on f8. He goes here, and I go g6. Here, actually, the computer again wants me to take on e5. I was just like, I'm going to play passive. There is a saying in chess, knight on f8, never mate. You're never going to get mated because the knight is protecting the checkmating square. So my opponent goes here, I go here, and I'm like, come get me. By the way, now I have 6 out of 7 pawns on light squares, which really means my bishop is bad. Okay, white is better here. The computer likes the position a little bit more for my opponent and plays bishop f4, but it's not easy to make a plan. He goes bishop f4, immediately it's a bad move, and I play queen b6. Targeting the knight and targeting this pawn on b2 and a2. Of course, those pawns don't really feel that important because my position is so passive, but he has to, you know, he still has to defend himself. And I went queen b2. I said, okay, I'm going to call this bluff. I'm now up 2 pawns. 2 pawns, all right? He goes rook b1. I could have taken this pawn, but I didn't like the fact that the rook is going to take on b7, so I went here. And my logic was, well, if the rook takes on b7, then I take his knight. He went here, forcing me to take his pawn. Now I have a 3-pawn advantage. He goes here, and that's a mistake. He obviously didn't like something in rook b7. He probably didn't like that I attack his rook and immediately get counterplay. So he gives up the knight for my bad bishop, and then comes here, but here comes knight c5. And I think my opponent's name is Irai. I think my opponent missed that rook takes bishop is not possible. Rook takes bishop, bishop takes knight looks like it works, but it doesn't because when my knight moves, my rook defends the, peekaboo, right? So here I'm like, oh, I'm winning. I definitely know I have a better position, right? I'm up 2 pawns, my opponent traded a lot of material, and there's only a few ways you can actually get into the position. So here I start threatening a rook trade, and I'm basically ready for rook b7, at which point I'm going to play knight a5, the rook will leave, and I will play knight c4, and I will go on to win the game. So here, my young Turkish opponent sacrifices the rook on f7, and I was like, oh my god, that is terrifying. King takes f7, right? I don't have the bar. All I know is queen f4, knight g5, and queen f6 is coming. Like, my opponent's just going to try to mate me. So queen f4, king g8. Queen f6. I'm busted, right? I got to defend mate. E6 is hanging. G6 is hanging. Knight G5 is coming with many mate threats. But what my opponent forgot about from a distance is Queen C1 check. I don't have to take the bishop, but I can give a check, and then I take the pawn on H6, and that is a very important pawn to lose, because now there is no mate on G7, and not only that, you're caught in my counterattack. So I'm actually going to counterattack you down the F-file. Knight G5, rook, and I could have played rook F8 or bishop F2. Bishop F2 is the more gangster way to do it. If you take with a queen, I just take the knight, it's over. You take with a king, I go here, you lose your queen. It's over. The only move here is this. And in this position, rook F8. And now you have a check, and I simply move the king. It doesn't matter. Rook F7, I block, and now you are threatened here and here. My opponent took my knight, and this is a pretty embarrassing little conclusion to the game. In my mind, I prepared the rook is hanging and the queen is hanging, so I just take the rook. Well, everybody knows, you know, when you have mate in basically 2 on the board, the better thing to do is to not do that. And the better thing to do is to just simply, you know, trade all the pieces in an endgame. And after queen e2 and king e2, you know, I have 3 extra pawns, and I'm probably just going to win the game. So I had a mate, but, you know, I wanted to end it endgame style. I thought this was a very nice game. In the evening, I got 8 out of 11 points. I beat a grandmaster. I beat, I think, a couple of grandmasters. So I was very happy with this counter-attacking game. And, you know, Turkish players are very, very strong, very tactical, very aggressive. And it's always fun to play Mr. Triple Donkey. So that's your little update. Tournament is coming up starting tomorrow. Friendly reminder, again, I will tell you, these are my opponents. You can watch, obviously, anywhere you want to watch. And you can check out Blitzfield if you'd like. Friend of the channel, big community member, Mr. Ronnie, who is the founder. That's why the tournament has that name. And then also you can play Guess the Move when it's ready on Chessly, and you can also do the special course, which will appear in the all courses page. And you can just start a free trial. You don't need to be a paying member. The course will expire in a week, and you can earn double XP. So very exciting stuff. Follow along on Chessly, do the special course, learn from my games, watch my games, keep following the Road to Grandmaster series. That's all I have for you today. Appreciate your support as always, and hope to gain some points in this tournament. Get out of here.